Welcome to Real Therapy Gone Wrong, where film reel meets real life. We are Brandie Sellers and Lyndsey Murray, two sex therapists who point out the difference between Hollywood therapy and real life therapy. This show does not constitute a therapeutic relationship. In today's episode, we're covering the show Couple to Throuple, Season 1, Episode 3, entitled Jealousy. The show can be viewed on Peacock. Lyndsey is going to recap the show and we'll chime in as we go to comment on the therapy and other mental health issues. Take it away, Lyndsey.
Right. So I'll give before I go into the recap, this episode will be a little bit different just because I think it's not a scripted show. And so I imagine you and I will both kind of like comment just about what we see with the couples and the thirds in this show. But just for anyone to know what the show's about, really it's four couples that are new to non-monogamy. And so they're spending a month at this tropical resort where they freely experiment bringing a third into their relationship. So there's couples and then there's thirds. And then the whole point is like watching them kind of navigate that experience and then deciding, is this the third that we want to stay with or not? And then if they want to swap, there's other thirds who come in as each episode goes on. And it's hosted by Scott Evans, who has hosted Access Hollywood, as well as the talk show Access Daily with Mario and Kit. So he's, got some experience in the hosting gig, and I think he does a pretty good job of hosting.
Yeah, I
the
thought so
show.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he did great. And then there is a therapist in the show, which, we'll get to that and we'll kind of talk about it. But I'm just going to start with the couples that we see. And Brandie definitely like chime in at any point because I think like this is the third episode. And so I think by this point in season 1, I think people are warming up to the idea, but you can definitely sense there's some anxiety, there's like some insecurities, and this episode's titled Jealousy. So there's definitely some like jealousy that pops up that they kind of process with the therapist later in the episode. So just as like an example of, I think, how complicated it can be to navigate like bringing a third person into your relationship. It starts with a couple, Dylan and Lauren, who are experimenting with Becca. And they're both like really excited. They're like, oh, I think Becca's really into us. This is so great. And it goes to Becca and she's like, no, I don't want to share a bed with him. Not at all. Like she's not into it at all. And you later find out that it's really more to do. She says that she has an ick like with Dylan. She likes Lauren, but she doesn't really like Dylan so much. And so like, in this show, this is just one type of non-monogamy. Like they're trying to form this relationship with all three people involved, as opposed to one partner having their own partner and then you having your own partner, which I think, in my experience as a therapist, I think I see more. This is just my small bubble, but I think I see more like each person having their own partner or partners and not so much like a relationship with three people. Does that make sense?
That's the same for me, or people who swing, who go to
Yeah.
clubs together and swing. Or like you said, who have different, like some hot wifing or things like that. And less so like polyamory, which is like a throuple or 4 people in a relationship where that's the relationship structure.
Yeah, totally. So this show's very unique and I really like the show. I mean, I think when you hear couple to throuple, I think my initial impression was like it'll be kind of a silly show, but it actually is pretty serious. I mean, it does show like how realistic it can be. And I like it because it's not just straight couples or straight people. It's definitely like a queer show and it's people who are bisexual and I don't know, I just like really enjoyed seeing that because I think on a lot of these shows it tends to be very straight and this show is not that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also like that there's race diversity in the show.
Yes.
The only diversity that I would have liked to see is body diversity. Like everybody in the show is like, magazine kind of beautiful.
Yes.
And smaller bodies and just like very conventionally attractive. And of course, because it's a reality show and they want people to watch it, I get it. But it is a bummer that there wasn't really size diversity as much as the other ways that they were able to show diversity on the show.
Yeah, for some reason that tends to be the hardest diversity for these shows to portray. Like I even think of Love is Blind, which is like a totally different show, but still a reality show. But yeah, Love is Blind, it's like but everyone on the show is conventionally hot. So what's
Right.
the experiment? You know what I mean? Like there is no diversity in that way. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right about that. And just to give kind of an overview of the other couples, so we have Ishmael and Rahman, which they're a gay couple, and Jonathan is their third. And with them, like Jonathan and Ishmael kind of like hit it off more and they talk more, they seem to connect more. And so Rahman has this wall up. And that's kind of a source of contention with them. Like you see, Ashmal getting frustrated with Ramal because he's like, hey, you won't even talk to Jonathan. And I think he's just feeling really insecure. Like, y'all clearly are more connected. I feel kind of on the outs. But they did a good job of, in my opinion, communicating about it. And Ashmal was I think understanding about it. Like once they talked about it, I think there was some point in the episode where he was like, I'm sorry that I didn't include you more. And I need to be more open about that. And like we should continue talking about this. Um, and then you have Sean and Brittany, and their third is Sanu. And Sanu has been poly for 10 years. And I think the impression I get is that she was trying to like kind of control how this poly relationship is supposed to go. And Brittany especially was like getting really frustrated with that because she was like, it's supposed to be fun. I don't get authenticity from you. It's like you're just trying to direct us around because like you're the expert, but we don't need you to be the expert.
Yeah, Brittany also strikes me as someone who just generally doesn't want to be bossed around at all, like a very
No.
opinionated, independent person.
Yeah.
So, as somebody who's going to be in a throuple with her and her partner needs to be more like egalitarian level and not dominant.
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, that there was definitely like a clash there. And you can tell Brittany doesn't want to be controlled and is not shy at all to like say what she has to say. Um at the end of the episode, this isn't like spoiling much, but at the end of the episode they have like that stay or swap ceremony where you can decide, are we going to stay with this third or are we going to swap? And Brittany says, mind you, they're saying all this in front of everyone. It's like all the couples, all the thirds are there, and then like the replacement people. I don't have a better term for them, but the ones who like could come in if a third goes are
The
all there as
singles.
well. The singles, that's yeah, I don't know why I can think of that. The singles are there. And Brittany says to everyone, like, oh, we're definitely gonna be swapping Sanu. Like makes it like it was like a very much a dig. Even one of the girls was like, damn, definitely. Like they're ready to get rid of her. So that was not working out. And then the last couple you have is Wilder and Corey. And Corey is a woman. I'm just pointing it out because for half of the episode, I kept thinking Corey was a man. And then I was very confused about whose relationship was what. So, anyways, Wilder and Corey. And they're with Denise, who's a third. They seem very comfortable with Denise. They end up staying with her. Um, but Corey definitely is very insecure, but owns it. Like I gotta give her a lot of credit. She was like, I'm totally freaking out about the idea of like Wilder even kissing her. And I don't know what that is about. So they go to this like therapy with Shamyra, and that's the therapist in the show, who I thought was really great. I mean,
Mhm.
definitely very positive, definitely very like welcoming and non-shaming. And when Shamira talks about jealousy, she just says like that's a pretty normal emotion to have when you're poly, and you kind of just have to like build it in and own it. And there's a way that you can like own it and process it without like acting out, right? And so that's what we're really going to talk about. And so it's called a jealousy confession, and they're all around this bonfire, and everyone writes, when was the time you got jealous so far? And what did you get jealous about? And they all put it in this box, and then Shamyra reads them and then is like, who wrote this card? And the person gets to decide, is this a jealousy that I can just get rid of tonight and throw it in the fire and be done with it? Or is this a jealousy that is going to take me some time to uncover? And it's for anyone who did watch it, I feel like the therapy was like therapy light. Like we didn't
Mhm.
see that. I'm sure it's happening behind the scenes. We don't see her really getting like too in depth with anyone. But I still liked what I saw. Like it was a really cool exercise. I thought it was great. And Dylan says that he's never been jealous, but then he like describes something that clearly is jealousy. And then
Yeah.
he's like, oh, maybe that's what that is. And it's like, yeah, that's
Yeah,
what jealousy is.
I think overall there's just a lack of maturity with him, I think, is what it is. Because I've seen the show, I think is 6 episodes, and I watched them all. And I don't normally watch reality shows because I don't like the sort of, I don't know, fakey feeling about them, which
Yeah.
this show definitely had in episode one. Like they're all just getting used to being in front of the camera. But as it's gone on, I don't think that quality is there as much. And it really, like, there's a lot of depth in the show that I think they were able to get to. And I think this particular person is just very immature, like just lacks emotional maturity
Yeah.
overall. Yeah.
I would agree, and maybe that's part of the reason why Becca kind of got the ick from him, because
Mhm.
he's very like, I don't know. So hard to say exactly what the immaturity is, but you can just see it with him. And something else too, and this might have been, um, I am thinking about Becca here. So she doesn't stay with them. I mean, swap her for someone else. Um, but Becca, like, I'm trying to think of how I want to say this. Something I'm always like cautious of, whatever you see like in a TV show, like women who like other women, like you see women making out. Sometimes it feels very like for the male gaze and not so
Mhm.
much I authentically like want to make out with you because I want to be with you kind of thing. And this may have been the next episode because I'm getting my lines crossed here because I ended up watching the next episode. But I think Becca was kind of making comments like wanting to make out with people, but it seemed very performative in a way, like,
Mhm.
"Oh, the guys will think this is hot." She didn't say that, but that's the impression you get. That's something I don't like when I see that, but I think you run into that risk when it's a TV show,
Oh, for
that you'll
sure.
get people like that will do that. Um, but yeah, I mean, I don't know, I overall thought that it was really good, and what they had to
I
say
did
about
too.
jealousy was awesome.
I did too, and I thought it was interesting to hear each person's different experience with jealousy and how, like, somebody even said, I don't think I can, I think it was Ramon said, I can't say that I'm giving this all up, but I can say that
Mhm.
I'm working towards it and that I want to.
Yeah.
And so that felt genuine too. It wasn't like, oh, we're all going to give it up and burn it in the fire and then it's going to be fine just because we're making a TV show, you know? So it did feel genuine.
Yeah, same with Corey. She did the same thing. She was just saying, kind of like, I don't really know why this jealousy is there. I don't know why it's so strong. I don't know why it's like striking this insecurity in me. So it's going to take me a while to, get rid of this. So she kept it. And I think that's the best thing you can do. Like when I see couples in my practice, trying to pretend that you're over it never works. I can
Never.
promise you it never works. It just makes it worse because now you're stuffing it down, trying to pretend, and then whatever it is just keeps like building and building, and then it's going to come out eventually. So when someone can really own it, I think that's a huge strength.
Well, and it's really necessary if you're going to have any sort of non-monogamy situation in your
Mhm.
relationship.
Yeah.
Then it requires honesty and boundaries. And like, I think people who don't know a lot about non-monogamy can think that it's easy or like our relationship sucks. So let's, bring in a third person. But your relationship has to be so tight and good, and the communication has to be good, and the boundaries. And we have to be able to talk about if there's jealousy or any other issues,
Mhm.
if it's going to be a successful experience practicing non-monogamy. And I think the show does a good job of talking about that.
I think so too. The therapist they have, Shamyra, she has a really awesome Instagram page. Like she's a sex therapist and is also like a consultant and a speaker and has all the like there's it's very clear why she was picked for this show because she definitely knows what she's talking about. I think she's perfect for the show because she
Mhm.
knows she has a lot of experience working with non-monogamy and knows what direction to take them when they're really struggling. Because I think she's probably seen a lot of this in her personal work. You know what I mean?
It definitely seems like it. Yeah.
Yeah. So she seems really great. And I was just thinking, like, speaking of just that word jealousy and like the feeling of jealousy, I think you really have to prepare that jealousy is going to be there at some point, no matter how solid your relationship is. It doesn't mean that non-monogamy is not for you. I think you can work through it. But my advice would be to always prepare for it. Like, oh, y'all
Mhm.
are going to open up. As secure as you think y'all might be, it's more than likely that someone's gonna get jealous. And it's unexpected, but expect it. It would be my advice.
For sure. And also talk about it
Yeah. Yeah, for
when
sure.
it does come up, because I see how it can strengthen relationships after that.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
people might be wondering, why would you engage in non-monogamy if it's going to cause all of these problems? But I really do think some people are just not monogamous people. And I think that's okay. And all these different relationship structures can work. And for some people, it is worth it. And they do have really successful relationships, and it's not going to ruin your marriage necessarily if you have a great marriage and you just try things. And if it doesn't work, you can say, well, that didn't work, we won't do that again. And
Yeah.
but there's like flexibility there because the relationship is good.
Yeah. The only time I would say when it when I would advise not doing it is if you have a partner who isn't being ethical. You have
Yeah.
there's people out there that want to take advantage and want to cross boundary or do cross boundaries and don't really respect that. That's not ethical. So I know like we're just using the word non-monogamy. There's a way to do it that is ethical, that's consensual, that's respectful, and there's a way to do it where it's not. And so if you have a partner who's not being ethical, not being respectful, and it's causing you a world of pain, that's different than jealousy. Do you get what I mean? Like I
Right.
think there's that misconception that non-monogamy is just a complete nightmare. I mean, it can be.
Yeah.
It can be depending on who is involved, but it doesn't have to be if you're really doing it for the right reasons, I think.
Yeah. And lots of people are in happy variations of non-monogamous relationships, thruples or otherwise.
Yeah, let's talk about a few of those like different types of non-monogamy. And there's a lot of ways to do it. So we're probably not even going to get to all of them. Um but what would you say are some common, I guess, structures of non-monogamy, open, poly, whatever?
Yeah, I think the what I tend to see the most really is swinging in
Mhm.
my practice, and people who are going to clubs or resorts or hotel weekends. Like sometimes there'll be a hotel
Mhm.
takeover with a certain population of people who are practicing polyamory. And also, polycules can be like that can be a huge structure with a ton of people
Yeah.
involved,
Yeah.
or it could be a throuple. there are just so many different ways that can
Mhm.
go. But it all requires like really good communication and what are the boundaries and what does this look like, and things will come up and then you have to deal with it.
Which, all of those things are required for monogamy, but people don't do it for monogamy. People
Yeah.
don't. And then they're like, I couldn't imagine having to talk to my wife that much. And I'm like, why? Even if you're not with another woman or she's not with someone else, you should be talking that much in your monogamous relationship. So I think that's another misconception too, is people just think, oh, poly's just so much. I mean, it is a lot of communication, but you could be doing that just between you and your one partner too, to make sure that you are genuinely happy. I mostly see swingers too. I see that a lot. And most of them just like to do couples thing. Like they stay together as a couple, they sleep with another couple. Sometimes they might branch off and like have a solo partner or something, but that's more rare, at least in my experience. A lot of them prefer to stick together when they do that. I am thinking too, because there is just so many structures. Yeah, polycule can be multiple people. I've seen it with like 5 or 6 people, and it could be whatever they want it to be, and they can make it work. I've also seen like monogamous poly couple, like one
Hmm.
person is monogamous, the other one is not. I think that's a hard structure to make work. Again, in my experience, but it can be done, right? That's another way that people do it is one person's open and the other one's not.
Yeah, and also so I've seen where relationship structures change, where there might be swinging and then there might be one person having a relationship and the other person might be monogamous for a while, and
Mhm.
then so just because you're trying out or you're participating in one kind of ethical non-monogamy doesn't mean that like
Mhm.
that's the one you're doing forever. You
Mhm.
might close the relationship again and just be monogamous for a while, or you might try it a different way just to explore, because some people who enjoy ethical non-monogamy really just want to experiment with different things and see what happens.
Yeah, which I think is great when couples can do that because when you make agreements of whatever you're doing, I think there has to be some flexibility built in. I don't mean breaking agreements. I just mean like, hey, we agreed to this structure. Maybe that's not quite working anymore. Like, let's revisit it. Maybe we want to do
Yes.
that. Okay, maybe right. Like, it's not set in stone, which freaks some people out, but then simultaneously is less scary. Like some people really want that security. Like, no, I need everything, every detail written down. Because they're scared is usually
Yeah.
what I see. But then on the other end, if it is flexible, you can view it as more of an experiment. It's like, this is what we're agreeing to right now. It's also okay if I end up not liking that. And we can come back and talk about it. And so yeah, you're absolutely right. Like structures can change over time. And some people aren't non-monogamous forever. I've seen
Right.
couples who were in the swinging lifestyle for 20 years and one day they both were just like, I think I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah, me too, and they were just done with it, and they just keep those friends, and, they keep it going. One thing I wanted to talk about, and I'm sure you've had this experience too in your practice, but, a big mistake that I see couples making is they will agree to, like, additional sexual partners, but not additional relationships. That's a big difference between open and poly. Poly is, like, relationships, like, I have another boyfriend, you have another girlfriend. Open tends, and again, it's kind of vague, but it tends to mean we can sleep with other people, but we don't have boyfriends and girlfriends and whatever. A mistake I see people make is that when they agree to just other sexual partners, the agreement I'll see often is we agree that we're not going to have feelings for someone else. And I don't think you can avoid that. Like, if it's going to happen, I
Mm.
don't know that you can really. I don't know. I've just never met someone I'm like, "I'm gonna have feelings for you." Like, it just
Right.
happens, and so then when it does happen, I've seen the person try to hide it, because they feel really ashamed about it. They're like, "Oh, I feel like I'm breaking this agreement. I don't know what to do, and I don't want to say anything." And then the other person feels betrayed because they didn't know they were falling for someone else. And so when I see that happen, I just tell couples that that wasn't quite the best agreement, that you
Right.
can't legislate feelings because it's like out of your control. But the best thing, like a better agreement would be if we start developing feelings, we will talk about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It was a bad agreement to begin with.
Mhm.
The other thing to negotiate is safety, protection from STIs and pregnancy.
Yes.
Like a lot of couples that practice ethical non-monogamy have a strict policy about condom use. So that's something that's really important to talk about. And another thing is some couples who are practicing non-monogamy like want to come back together if they're with other people and tell like every
Mhm.
detail. Some couples have an agreement where they're like, I don't want to know what you're doing with this other person. Don't even
Mhm.
talk to me about it. And so that's another negotiation point is what are we sharing with each other and what are we not sharing?
Yeah, totally. And also deciding like what is sacred just between the 2 of you. You know,
Mm,
I have some couples who are like, in our bed at home, we're not gonna sleep with other people in our own bed. You know, we'll keep that separate. Maybe there's nicknames that we only call each other. Because that could be really hurt. I know it seems like something small, but if you have a pet name like Bunny or something and you call another partner Bunny, I can see how that would be hurtful because it's like, that's my nickname. Like you call
right.
me that, not them. So you can get really, I think you should get detailed in
Mhm.
what is sacred between the 2 of you and what's acceptable with you and someone else. The protection, uh, I think that one's really important, and it's really sad to see when a partner breaks that.
Yeah.
They go, "Yeah, I did sleep with so and so," which is allowed, but I didn't use a condom. That feels like a huge violation. Well, it is a huge violation,
Yeah.
essentially. And now
And
you've
it
gotta go and get tested, and well, you should be getting tested anyways, but now it feels really urgent.
right, yes. And there are ways to get tested for free. Most counties have free
Mhm,
testing, or a low cost testing at the health department. So people who are practicing ethical non-monogamy, unless you're in like a throuple where you're all just only having sex with each other, need to
mhm.
be getting tested at least every quarter.
I would say so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, once every few months. And if your partner won't get tested, that is a huge red flag to me. I've
Yes.
seen that before too. They get really mad. They feel like they're accused. And I'm like, that is just standard practice. That should not be an argument. That should not be a whole thing. And it makes me wonder, like, what are you doing if you're
Well, it's
getting
not
mad
a
about getting tested?
a health safety issue is not a moral issue. Like it's not
No,
it's
no.
just we need to all be safe. So this is what we're going to do. Use condoms, get tested.
Well, it's the same. I mean, when I was single, if I would use protection at first, but let's say it's like getting more serious, maybe we're only seeing each other. I would want them to get tested just like I was already going to go get tested. And I don't think I ever had anyone get mad at me about it, but if they did, if they were like, "Fuck that, I'm not gonna," I'd be like, "Well, we're done then." Like,
Right.
I don't trust you. This is really weird. Just like you said, it's not a moral issue. It's just why would we not wanna be safe? And also, I'm
Exactly.
not gonna judge you if you have something, I just need to know because if you can get it resolved,
Right.
if it's not a resolvable one, am I gonna be okay with that? Like, there's a lot of decision making that goes into it, and so people need to be willing to do that, and in my opinion, there's no wiggle room there. You should be doing it.
Yeah. I mean, different people have different levels of feelings of safety about that.
Mhm.
And so that's something to also consider, but definitely everybody needs to know for themselves what their boundary is around that.
Totally. Yeah. Yep,
It's
I
making me
agree.
think in the show, I bet they tested everyone before.
I would hope that they did. I would hope that because they're having sex. I mean, I would assume, but yeah, I think that would have been a good idea if they did. So overall, I mean, I know we're going into like different ways that relationships can look. For anyone who maybe is curious on how people navigate going from a couple to a throuple, I would recommend this show.
I would too.
I really enjoyed it, and I thought the therapy was good, and like realistic to what people can feel in the process.
Well, and I like how each episode they address a different sort of issue in this
Mhm.
area. Like I think it's the second episode, the the third kisses someone from the couple in front of
Mhm.
the other person, and they're kind of testing communication and like if this is a point where you're not comfortable you should speak up, and then some people spoke up and some people didn't speak up, and
Yeah.
so I like how in each episode they address a big issue that thruples can face. I think they did a great job with that. I love the outfits in the show. I think are hysterical. Like some people, more so than others, are really like I think it's Ramon wears a speedo like every day.
Yes,
He's never
yes.
wearing pants, and also he had a couple of like cold shoulder shirts, and I was thinking that was really funny because he kind of does put a cold shoulder, and then his wardrobe is reflecting that, which I
Yeah.
thought was, like, very dramatic and funny. Um, and also just the juxtaposition of the different couples and their experiences trying to add a throuple, I thought was really good.
Yeah. I don't think I have anything else to say about it, do you?
I don't think so either.
Okay. So if you enjoyed this episode of Real Therapy Gone Wrong, please like, review, subscribe, and follow us where you listen to your podcasts. In our next episode, we will discuss the movie One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, which you can stream on Amazon Prime or Apple. If you'd like Real Therapy Gone Right, we are two actual therapists who help clients on a daily basis. Contact us if you'd like to learn more about our work or want to hire us. You can find Lyndsey at relationshipmatterstx.com or Brandie at sellerscounseling.com. Our show email is realtherapygonewrong@gmail.com. That's real, REEL. If you're making a movie or TV show and do not want to find your show on our podcast, we are available to consult on your projects. Get in touch.